we'll have an opportunity for discussion. All right. So I hope everybody can now see my screen. We looked at 6 different Jātakas from the first volume of the sub-commentary to Jātakas. So what are Jātakas? Jātakas are stories of the Buddha's previous lives. During the Buddha's time, the Buddha provided very simple, very structured verses for each of the Jātakas, or that's what we believe. And then later, the great masters provided more details into these verses to provide more context, more details, so we can easily understand and remember what was going on in those lives. And then, as the time gradually progressed and different meanings of Pali language, of Pali words appeared, different attitudes, different ways of life appeared in the world, the Pali masters wrote down also the meaning of the commentaries so that people don't misunderstand. So the commentaries help us understand the main scripture, the original words of the Buddha. The sub-commentaries help us understand the commentaries. So according to the historians, the teaching of the Buddha was fully written down by the 1st century before Christ, so about 500 years after the Buddha passed away. The commentaries were fully finalized with all of the structure and different additions and comments and so on by 5th century after Christ, which is about 600 years after the original scriptures were written down, and the sub-commentaries were finalized by the 19th century after Christ. Okay, so that is about 2,500 years after the Buddha passed away. Okay, so first we will be reviewing the 6 Jātakas so that we better remember what were they about. Let's start first with Munika Jātaka, where we learned about how the Buddha to be in his past life was a cow, and the cow He heard his friends being a little jealous about pigs, about a pig in the village. Oh, this pig, he gets everything he wants. He can just do whatever he wants. And we have to work hard. That is so unfair. But the Buddha to be reminded them, no, no, actually this pig may seem very happy, free, lazy, but in fact, in the end, the pig will be killed and used as a side dish. During the Buddha's time, this was shown as a monk. We don't see it here in the picture, but in the story, a monk was basically used by a lady who was ugly, who was old, who was not able to find any husband, and she tried to seduce the monk through food so that the monk lives with her, and regardless of the fact that his life might not be as pleasant as she tried to delude him into. Okay, so that's the problem of sensual pleasures. Then we were talking about Varuni Jātaka, the ruin of ignorance, where we see Varuni means alcohol, and we see that the alcohol was spoiled by an apprentice, a student of we could say a bar owner, and the apprentice, he saw that people they are adding salt into alcohol, but instead they were actually adding sugar. So the apprentice put salt into the alcohol, and that way he ruined all of the alcohol for everybody. And this Jataka tries to teach us that just being kind is not enough. We need to also apply knowledge and wisdom to our kindness, because if we are just kind, we may ruin, we may cause trouble, and that is not exactly what kindness should do. Then we talked about Deva Dhamma Jataka, where the Bodhisattva and his two princes, they leave the palace because of the conflict that the king has with the queen. They come to a pond, and there a Yaka, an ogre, questions the two brothers about what is the meaning of Devadhamma, and they cannot answer correctly, so they are imprisoned, they are captured by the ogre. But when the ogre asks the Buddha to be gives the right answer. The divine qualities, Devadhamma, are Hiri, Ottappa. That means the shame and fear. So the worry that if I do something wrong, then I will be not fulfilling the legacy. I will be not doing what I should do as the heir, or as the son or daughter of my family, or as the member of a certain community, or as a Buddhist. And then the other one, fear that other people, if I do something wrong, will hit me, will blame me, will put me to prison, will imprison me, and so on. So this shame and fear, that is Deva Dhamma, and that was the right answer. And upon that answer, the ogre released the two brothers of the Buddha to be, and stopped killing entirely, and went to the palace together with the three princes. The Buddha to be became a king, and the ogre provided protection to the village or to the city, while he received offerings from the people. Telapatta Jātaka is a little similar in the sense that, again, the Buddha to be is there with some people. He knows the forest, but in this case, while it's true that the Buddha to be again is a prince and he again goes to forest, he is not actually expelled from the palace. He instead travels to another kingdom to become a king there. But on the way in the forest, his 5 friends are captured by ladies. And unlike in the previous case, in the Telapatta Jātaka, in this case, the Buddha to be does not actually rescue them. The Buddha to be is not able to rescue his 5 friends because the 5 friends, they don't want to be rescued. They are attached to the suffering. Okay, they're deluded and they want to be with these ladies, but these ladies are in fact ogresses, and they kill and devour the friends of the Buddha to be. In the end, one of these ogresses, follows with the Buddha to be all the way to the other kingdom. She kills and devours the king and the king's family, upon which the Buddha to be, as the one who resisted to this ogress, is made the king of that kingdom. Then we talked about Lomahamsa Jātaka. So that's the story where the monk Sunakatta, where he got angry that the Buddha does not teach him meditation that would allow him to hear, to have divine ear, to hear things that are far near, that are in the heaven, that are in the hell. So this venerable Sunakatta decided to leave the monkhood, and he became a student of another ascetic, who followed ascetic practices, Korakattiya, and that ascetic, however, died. And when the ascetic died, Sunakatta was very angry, and he was going around in the village trying to say bad things about the Buddha. He was not very successful because in the village many people were already enlightened, so of course they didn't believe what he said. And the Buddha then spoke about his past life, where he was himself a very strict ascetic, but as an ascetic, he saw that when he dies, he will go to hell. So to avoid going to hell, he removed that view that being an ascetic is a good idea, and he instead went to heaven. On the other hand, Sunakatta did not know that being a self-torturing ascetic is a problem, and so he was blaming the Buddha for not being enlightened, for not having fully realized what he is teaching. But Venerable Sariputta, who could theoretically try to persuade Sunakatta to change his view, Venerable Sariputta believed that Sunakatta is just angry. He does not really believe what he says, and therefore Venerable Sariputta believed that Sunakatta will soon change his view and come and apologize to the Buddha. The last Jātaka we talked about, which in fact was the very first Jātaka we talked about, is the Nigrodha Mega Jātaka. And in Nigrodha Mega Jātaka, we learned about a nun who was found pregnant during the life of the Buddha. And in this case, the nun was actually one of the followers of the of the Venerable Devadatta. But again, in our scriptures, we do not use the word venerable for Devadatta. And Devadatta, who was not experienced, knowledgeable, powerful, when he found out that one of his students is pregnant as a nun, he was afraid of what people may say. So he expelled her. He suggested that she goes back home, but instead she went to see the Buddha. And as the Buddha's student, the Buddha provided investigation, and they found out that actually she was pregnant already before she became a nun. So she did not break any particular rule to be pregnant, and that's how the Buddha saved the nun from becoming again a layperson. In a past life, this was a deer, a doe, and when she was pregnant, when the doe was pregnant, the doe was condemned to death by the chief of the flock, who was the Devadatta to be, and this doe didn't agree that when she's pregnant, she will go and be killed by the king's butcher. So she went up to the Bodhisatta, to the Buddha to be, and Bodhisatta, instead of having her to go and die on the block, on the butcher's block, the Buddha to be himself went up and he was ready to be butchered, to be killed for the dinner of the king. And then the king, instead of killing the Buddha to be, he inquired what actually happened. And the Buddha to be told him, you see, there's a pregnant doe, and I do not agree that she is killed, so I'm here ready to be killed. But the Buddha to be already had the immunity. Immunity means that the king decided nobody will kill the deer, the king of the deer, that means the Buddha to be. And in this case, the king also gave the deer the very special opportunity that neither the deer, the king of the deer, the Buddha to be, nor the pregnant doe will be killed. But the Buddha to be asked, but how about the other deers in the flock within the fence? And the king said, okay, I will not kill any deer in the fence. But how about the deers outside the fence in the forest? So the king said, okay, I will not kill any deer at all. But how about other four-legged animals? And the king says, okay, so I will not kill any four-legged animal. And the deer asks, how about all the two-legged animals? That means the birds. And the king says, okay, no birds. And then how about the fish in the water? And the king says, okay, I will not kill any fish in the water as well. Now the question would be, how about insects or how about snakes, right? That one we don't have there. Just now I realized. Anyway, so it seems that the intention of this story is to show us that the king decided for the whole kingdom that there will be no killing of any animal at all. And in this Jataka, we also learned about the lay life of the lady who later became pregnant, that she was really disgusted with her body, understanding the nature of her body as it is decaying, as it is disgusting already now, as it contains worms and different kinds of bacteria. But at that time, they didn't know what are bacteria. Be careful about that. But they did know what are worms. And although they did not know what are bacteria, they did have psychic powers. And it's possible that these 80 types of worms are not really visible things in the body that they saw, but their way of perceiving actually bacteria and viruses through psychic powers. Something fell into my eye, so I'm making it a little harder. The limits of leadership. Lessons from the Bodhisattva's forest journeys. Okay, so here we see an interesting contrast between two Jātakas. That's the Telapatta and uh, the Devadhamma Jātakas, where the Buddha to be is first rescuing his two brothers, but his two brothers fell prey to an ogre because they didn't have the sufficient knowledge. And that's actually not really possible for us to know everything. But in the other story, in Telapatta Jataka, the Buddha to be was not able to rescue the people who followed him, the people who trusted him, his friends. And that is because they were not restrained. What does it mean, restrained? Restraint means they were not careful about where they look, what they listen to, what they smell, what they taste, what they touch. So, restrained here is being careful about what you do with your senses and what you choose to bring you pleasure. Okay, and they were very clearly warned, we are going to a forest full of deceptive or ogres. Okay, and they knew that these ladies who seem to be beautiful and attractive are actually ogresses, and they will be trying to kill and eat, devour these people, these travelers. But anyway, they were not restrained. They became attached to what they saw, heard, smelled, tasted, touched on the way. And as they were attached, they easily became prey for these ogresses. And that's when the Buddha to be was not able to rescue them. So we cannot all on the Buddha or the Buddha to be to rescue us. Many people think that they will recite Namo Adidapa or Namo Amitabha, and through that recitation they will be saved. Everything's fine. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. Through just reciting and asking the Buddha to be or the Buddha to help you, you are not saved. You will need to do a lot of work to save yourself. But you can always come up to the Buddha or to the monks and learn the knowledge. And that knowledge will, in the end, rescue you from the suffering of the cycle of rebirth. Additionally, for restraint, guarding the senses, so you see we learned quite a lot about guarding senses in our 6 stories. It's one of the main theme of the Jātakas. It helps you really remember that the number one thing for the success, for attainment of enlightenment, or being born in heaven, or being successful in life as a human already here and now, is to be restrained, is to be careful about the attachment that you develop. There are things that we should avoid, even though they look pleasant, so that we are successful. All right? So, for example, in Telapatta Jataka, we learn the Buddha's simile given to the monks, where we have a dancing lady, a beautiful dancing lady. Everybody comes up to see that beautiful dancing lady, and you as the monk would be supposed to go between that lady and the crowd who's cheering on that lady. And you are carrying a pot full of oil, and a man, a soldier with a sword, is following behind you. And if you spill a single drop of that oil, that soldier will cut off your head. And as you're walking, you're very careful because you know the danger. But as a monk or as a nun, you would not be that careful because you do not see any soldier with a sword behind you, and you're not really carrying any pot with oil. the practice of a monk or a nun is much, much more complicated. It is very, very complicated, not just about carrying a pot of oil. So we can see here indeed that being a monk or a nun is very, very difficult. But if you do something wrong, sorry, you go to hell. So being a monk or a nun is very hard. For us, for lay people, also being restrained and avoid killing, stealing, adultery, telling lies, drinking alcohol, even in the cases where it can bring us pleasure. So many people lie in their business to get more money. Many people steal to get more money, of course, to get what they want. There are people who kill to be more pleasurable. For example, at home, it seems like if you kill the mosquito or if you kill the cockroach, you will actually have a more beautiful life. But no, sorry, that's wrong. That is the desire for beautiful life that leads to your suffering. So we need to be restrained and we need to avoid breaking the 5 precepts. Similarly, we read in the other Jātaka, I think that's Munika Jātaka, right? Yes, Munika Jātaka. We read about how the pig enjoys eating all kinds of delicious food, but then because the pig is not restrained, because it lives unrestrained life, it becomes fat and big, and people love to kill that pig to enjoy eating it, while the cow needs to live restrained, eating basically the same thing every time and working super hard. And that is what makes the cow live long time. Not today, be careful. Today, a cow dies at any time. Today, people don't really care what the cow does. Okay, and then we have here some synthesis of ideas. So we have here ignorance and illusion. We can learn about the problem of not having sufficient knowledge. Okay, the problem of not having sufficient knowledge. If you don't have sufficient knowledge, you will suffer. That's why it's a really cool idea to be very ardent at school, to be very ardent at the university, to get a lot of degrees, to get a lot of friends. So it's not just about knowledge. The world is more complex than just reading books and getting degrees. But these degrees are a very good start with that. You also need to have a lot of friends, you need to make connections, and you need to develop skills and experience. So how do you develop skills? It's a little bit like the books, but skills are more hands-on. So you need to visit the right people and learn from them how to do this, how to do that, get as many skills as best as you can. And of course, you need to have the experience. So you do not just try this, try that, but also you need to stick to some of these skills so that you develop them to a very deep level and you have experience, and that's what makes you safer and more successful. So we read here about the different cases. We read in those 6 stories about the different cases where the monks or where the people before the Buddha's time tried to achieve happiness, they tried to achieve success, but they didn't have the knowledge, and that's what led to their problem. So we learned, for example, in the Varuni Jātaka about the man who added salt into the alcohol and he ruined all of the business of his teacher. We learned about Sunakatta, who followed an ascetic Gorakattiya, who believed that self-torture is good, but instead he was born as a ghost. We read about the pig who enjoyed sensual pleasures, or about the king, about the monk who became a victim to the sensual desires from an old ugly lady who wanted to get him to become a layperson. We learned And then we learned how the Buddha's knowledge was extraordinary. So we learned how the Buddha to be when he was traveling to the other kingdom in the, and this was the Dalapatta Jātaka, how he avoided the attractiveness of the ogresses and he therefore became a king. We read about how the Buddha in his past life was a self-torturing ascetic and he avoided believing that self-torture is good by the time of his death. He totally discarded that view and he therefore was born in heaven instead of in hell. And we also read about the Buddha to be encouraging the monks to maintain mindfulness so that as they're mindful and they do not become victims of sensual pleasures, they can soon achieve enlightenment. Okay, now we have here some surviving wisdom, but that will be a little bit of repetition of what I've already said. So the Buddha to be in the Devadhamma Jātaka, he had the knowledge, he had the understanding of what is hiri, moral shame, what is ottappa, okay? And through that knowledge, he was able to escape the danger of the ogre. He was also able to save his two brothers. Yes, and then this is what we already spoke about. So now we are going to a little review of what the sub-commentaries say. So for now, what I was talking about was a review of the commentaries. So now we are going to see a little bit of a review of what we learned from the sub-commentaries, which provide some additional knowledge and explanation to the commentaries. So we learned in the Varuni Jataka, where the gentleman was pouring salt into alcohol, we learned there about the ancient measures of the Buddha's time. We learned that a lot of these measurements were fourfold, like today, especially in Vietnam, your measures, if you're from Vietnam, your measures are tenfold, like in Europe. So you have a millimeter, you have a centimeter, you have a meter, then you have a kilometer, and so on. So you have like 10, 10, 10, or 1,000, or whatever else. So it's much easier to count when the multiplication is the same. And in the Buddha's time, also in many cases, the multiplication was the same, not by 10, but by 4. So you had so you had a handful pasata, which are for kuduvas. You had alhaka, which are for pasatas, and then you have pattas, you have alhakas, you have donas, and so on. But of course, there are exceptions, like when you get vaha, vaha are 20 karis. Okay, we also learned 4 modes of generation, that there are 4 ways how living beings are born, either from an egg or from a womb. This one is switched. Uh, so instead of egg, there should be womb, but whatever. So from womb, from egg, from moisture, moisture like the mosquitoes, and spontaneous birth like the deities, ghosts, and beings in hell. We also learned, we did not necessarily learn that this is beauty, but I think we brushed upon this one a little, that there are 5 features that make a lady beautiful, and that is the skin, the flesh, sinews, bones, and youth. Today we all often hear about the skin deep beauty, but that idea would be rejected by our scriptures. We do not believe in skin deep beauty. We believe that beauty is the physical beauty of a body consists of these 5 things. So just skin is not enough. Also, the shape of the body needs to be right, and also the age of the body needs to be right so that somebody can call it beautiful. But the interesting and I'd say funny thing that we read in the Law Niti, that's a book that's studied in Myanmar, and that is actually written in Myanmar. It's studied in schools of Myanmar. And Law Niti, what it says is that a beauty, it's also a book in Pali language, by the way. And this book suggests that beauty is when the lady is sufficiently, you see, so for each person it's different, sufficiently tall or sufficiently short, sufficiently bright colored or sufficiently dark colored, sufficiently fat or sufficiently thin, or we could say, probably more clearly, neither too tall nor too short, neither too dark nor too bright, neither too fat nor too thin. So again, we are going here beyond skin deep beauty, and still we are here completely limited to the physical appearance. So physical appearance is not just skin deep beauty. I'd say that's a nonsense created by the Western minds. Whatever, that's what we get. So Buddhism goes a little deeper, but that doesn't change any fact about the problem that all of this skin deep, not skin deep beauty, we would say beauty beyond skin, is also temporary, unsatisfactory, not self, so it's beyond control, and it is ephemeral, so we cannot really rely on it. Let me see if we have the cosmology here. I thought we had something about cosmology. Apparently not in these slides. We learned about the 7 states of consciousness, which I found particularly interesting, but we don't have it in the review. We won't have time for that anyway. Just review what we have. We have here Kalakanchika Asuras. I think this depiction is probably the closest that AI ever made. It's true, the eyes grow on the head and they look like pins. So this is very accurate. The mouth, however, also should be on the head. So maybe this one would be the mouth. And if you can imagine this one as actually closed up and just skin, then maybe that one, this picture probably would be the closest to all of the others. Yes, the body is withered. And I think they would be taller than this. Okay, this one looks a little not so tall, although we don't see what's below, but they're super tall. These are giants. Okay, these are giants. Kalakanchika, that means they look like black gruel, like a soup, and they suffer. They suffer a lot. 3 leagues tall, with minimal flesh and blood, resembling dark sour gruel or withered leaves. Features: crab-like eyes and a needle-sized mouth located on the very top of the head. You see? So if you do not think of what's below and you think that below is just skin, then this is how their head should look like. The mouth and the crab-like eyes all should be on the head, on the top of the head, not in front of it. Okay? An unusual feeding habit because their mouths are atop their heads. They must bend completely down to take nourishment. Interesting idea. Okay, so we have deathbed visions, nimitta. So the interesting thing that is probably very practical is that somebody who has a wrong view is not completely condemned to go to hell. They can actually change their view. You may like to try to help other people's view what they believe, but probably it will not work. On the other hand, if they are vacillating, if they're not sure what to believe, that's the time when you can come up and help them uh, get enough information for themselves to decide. Be careful. Oftentimes, when you persuade somebody, especially today, because it's you who made them to change the view, they will probably come back. Okay, so persuading oftentimes doesn't work. What works is to provide knowledge. So we always need to give the full freedom to everybody to believe whatever they want. But what we can do is provide them with the sufficient knowledge to make their own decision. What they decide to believe, that's what they will believe, regardless of what you try. So we just provide knowledge, and if they want to believe the knowledge you provided, then they may change their view. But if they don't, that's all you can do. Okay, torturing, persuading, forcing, punishing somebody for what they believe is not successful. So here we are talking about the bodhisattva in the Jātaka, where the monk Sunakatta was blaming the Buddha everywhere, and who went to a different teacher and believed in self-torture. So the Bodhisattva here, he clearly saw right before he died that if he dies with the belief that self-torture is fine, he will be born in hell. But because he changed his view and he totally discarded that idea that self-torture is fine, he was able to fully avoid hell and instead go to heaven. We have here a little bit of explanation of what's kamma nimitta, what's gati nimitta. So kamma nimitta is the reminder of what you have done. Gati nimitta is the reminder of what will happen to you. Okay, so people who are going to die, they may remember what they have done, the good things, the bad things, and they may also see where they are going to in their next life. Are they going to hell or to heaven? They will see different signs. So if they see beautiful gardens, they're probably going to heaven after they die. If they see fire, they're probably going to hell. If they see a crow, they're probably going to be born as a crow. So people who are just going to die, be careful what they see or what you see, and think of the good deeds, good things that you did in your life so that what you see changes. Or get monks. Get the monks to come to your bed and to remind you of what are the good things to do. And that may help you to, again, change your vision and change your destination as well. Swift wanderer, the bodiless. Okay, so these are some metaphors we learned from the subcommentaries about the mind. So we learned that the mind does not have anything material. There is no hardness, heaviness, cohesion, temperature, or motion in mind. And the mind is able to travel super fast. In your mind, you can think of different countries, different planets, different worlds immediately. You do not need to wait until the mind travels there. So the mind is super fast because it can travel in time and in place. You can travel into the past with your mind. But be careful in here. Your mind actually doesn't travel into the past, okay? This is a huge misunderstanding. The mind recreates the past based on what happened in the past, okay? That's why oftentimes we remember things that did not happen. And we also remember things that we don't remember things that did happen that we really saw or heard. You see, the mind does not really travel to the past, not at all. Okay, so be careful about that. The mind only recreates ideas, and the ability to recreate these ideas is influenced by the experience from the past. But the mind has no ability to actually go into the past and see how things really were. You would have to have a psychic power. You would have to have a psychic power, clairaudience, or clairvoyance. Clairvoyance for seeing, clairaudience for hearing. to allow you go into the past, to the future, and see really the truth. The nature of mental movement. Yes, that's what we just said. Fletcher's arrow. Yes, this one I think is the most useful point. So you need, or we need to straighten the mind. We need to develop the mind through faith, through energy, through extraordinary effort, through knowledge, so that our mind is very sharp and very mindful, and therefore we can achieve enlightenment. Then how about the body? The body is very different from the mind. The body has 9 openings. So 2 eyes, 2 ears. Uh, we have 2 nostrils and 1 mouth. So we have 7 openings on the face or in the head. And then we have 2 more openings down there for the poop and for the pee. And that's how we get 9 openings in the body. And these 9 openings, they are, what are they doing? Well, they actually exude. You see, ugly things come out of those openings. Okay, so that's the castle. Well, they could make the castle beautiful to make it more interesting. So it's like a beautiful golden box which is filled with poop. There's this body. But the beautiful golden box will always stay golden, whereas this body, within a few years, becomes old and dangerous and painful and sick, and then it dies. So the golden box filled with poop is still much, much better than this body. On the other hand, the golden box cannot achieve enlightenment, whereas this body can. House of many diseases. Yeah. That's what it is. So we have a lot of things in this body that can themselves create a disease. We do not have to wait to catch a bacteria or virus from outside. We already have the everything we need to become fully ill and painful and dead already in this body right here, right now, regardless of how old you are. For example, cancer. Cancer cells. They appear based on what's in the body. You do not need anything from outside to get a cancer. Additionally, we have insufficiency of blood, or we have autoimmune disease, where the bodily purification system believes that what is pure is actually impure. So then your body starts to attack your body because it thinks that your body is wrong for whatever reason. So then your body becomes ill on its own without taking anything from outside. So yeah, this body is pretty dangerous. And that's all for our presentation today. And now's the time to discuss. So we are not many people. As the time goes, that's the nature of these meetings. Let me see. I want to see everyone. Okay. So here we are. We have finished our 6 stories. We have reviewed them. We have compared them. We have analyzed them. I have answered quite a few questions from you, and now we have an opportunity to discuss your thoughts about what you have learned here. What do you think about the course as a whole? And if there are some things that you would more appreciate for our course B, course part B. So my main question would be, how did you enjoy this course? And what would you like to see in our next course? Okay, is there something that you learned from this course that is useful for your life or for your practice? Is there something that you didn't know that you have learned and that you think is important? So we will have another course. So this is the last lesson for course part A. The Jātaka subcommentary has 4 volumes, and we covered the first volume. Okay, so we will have 3 more courses. We will always have about 1 or 2 months break between each course, and to attend another part of the course, you need to fill the application form again. So that way, I try to make sure that we still, stay in some kind of like reasonable number of people, because when the course is so long, then in the end, they're like last two people or last one because people are just like dropping off. So to make it more interesting, I divide the course into these different parts, and I require the application form or whatever registration form, and that way I hope to maintain the course more interesting for everyone. So let's start. Is there anyone who would like to share with us what you have learned, what you have enjoyed in this course, and any suggestions, any ideas that you have for our next course? If possible, I would like to invite you to unmute yourself and you can talk right away. Feel free.
Does anyone have any questions or suggestion to share? I think I have one. I've learned something new that the creature that you share. I have never imagined that kind of creature that will be in the real world, because for me as a human, I have never seen such kind of creature. Yeah, that is one thing that I have learned. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things that we learn. I think it's not only me. I think everyone's attend weekly here. It's very useful for us. Thanks for sharing every weeks with the cute picture. I think all are AI, but it's a great. All are the great illusions. Yeah, everything. Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, I don't see anybody speaking, so I'll address what's in the comments. I would like to inquire about the memories of a bodhisattva in his final birth. Having spent countless, incalculable eons cultivating paramis, why is he unable to recall any of the teachings he learned from previous Buddhas? Is it because the vow of Samma Sambuddhahood obscures the recollection of past lives? Or is this simply a traditional characteristic of the final life of all perfectly enlightened Buddhas? So there are two things into that. It is true that the Buddha to be was believed to have psychic powers before he became a Buddha, but I have heard very knowledgeable people saying that the Buddha to be had only one one psychic power before he became a Buddha, and I am not now exactly sure whether that psychic power was related to remembering past lives. So the additional thing, so first, he did not have all psychic powers before he became a Buddha, so his psychic powers were limited. And additionally, even if you remember all past lives, that doesn't mean that you have all of the knowledge at all times with you. It just means that you can focus your mind to the particular thing you want to know so that you know it. And if you do not want to know what was happening with the Buddha that you met in a past life, well, then you will not do it. And that's how you don't remember it. Oftentimes, when we do work or when we are dealing with people, we have a knowledge, we have a memory of something that's helpful to use right away. But because we do not know that this is exactly what I should remember, that this is exactly what's important for me now, we do not try to go back in the memory to recreate that memory for now. Okay, for example, you know that when you're angry, you can actually replace it by loving kindness. And you know how to do it, and you know that you can do it. But when you get angry, you forget about it. Sorry. Okay. And there are many other things. Also, when we are not angry at all and we're doing some work, we forget certain principles. We forget certain, support that we received or that we have, and we just don't use it. That's just the way how we are. We cannot remember all of the useful things at the same time at all times. That's how the practice arises. So gradually you learn, oh, wait, these are the principles I always have to keep in my mind when I do this work. So just learning is not enough. The practice helps you better understand what are the really essential things that you have learned and that you must use. But in the beginning, you will not use them because you just don't use them. So I believe it's possible that the Buddha to be simply, even if he remembered past lives, he didn't know that that is what he needs, that he needs to remember, he needs to recollect what was happening with him when he was with the Buddha in the past and how the Buddha was teaching enlightenment, what were the principles at that time. So that is my answer to Wang Nguyen's question. We have another one. I would like to ask one more question. Does there exist any drawing or painting that accurately depicts the historical image of Gautama Buddha, or is described in the scriptures? After reading about his 32 marks of a great man, I find it impossible to visualize his actual appearance. He surely would not look like the statues we see today, especially regarding the hair on his head, as he certainly would not have kept his hair. And that's the trick, that it's not hair. I'll tell you something really interesting, which we have in the scriptures, but people don't talk about it. Actually, the little bulge, or how could we call it? The little bulge on the Buddha's head is not hair. Yeah, it is not hair. It's the bone. It's the bone. The bone actually comes into that shape. And would you believe that very, very, very ancient sculpture in India from, I don't know, like 3rd century before Christ or whatever, very, very long time before that, has not only the Buddha with this bulge, but also Venerable Kassapa and Venerable Sariputta with that bulge as the statues. Actually, the whole family of Sakyas, of the Buddha Gautama, had this bulge on their head. Yeah. But later, the sculptors and artists decided to use the bulge only for the Buddha to help people recognize who is the Buddha in the crowd of the monks that they painted or that they sculptured. Okay, so the bulge actually is bone, is a bony structure, and this bony structure is heritable. That means there are people who have it since birth. Okay, it's not hair at all. So the hair was still until the width of 2 finger breadths, so not longer than this much. But because it was covering the bulge, it looks like the Buddha had long hair, but that never happened. Okay. And how the Buddha really looked like, we of course will not know. There are some interesting things. So we have some pictures which are believed to have a divine origin, okay, that appeared through the power of gods. I have pictures that are believed like that. Each of those pictures looks different. And although they are made by God, so for example, a photographer comes to Bodh Gaya, he takes a photograph, there's nobody in the place, he's just taking a photograph of an empty place, and there you go, on the photography, there is a man sitting in meditation posture. Who could that be? Of course, they believe it's the Buddha, and that this picture, this image of the Buddha to be, of the Buddha is made by gods because the real person was not there. And therefore, who could that be and how could that be made? Of course, God's created this image into the photography, and so the cameraman then becomes famous and the picture as well. Actually, the cameramen are not that famous for that, but I would be able to trace the cameraman. I know a person who knows him. And now my computer is not doing what it should do. Something's wrong. Okay. Let me see if I can find the picture online. Not that easy to find it. In Sri Lanka, this picture is very famous. You'll find it in many monasteries. I'll need a little bit more time to find that. The picture is black and white. Hmm. It's interesting. So whoever wants to go, you can go. Thank you very much for attending our course. Oh, here, I found the picture. Um, and if you want to stay with me for a little bit of interesting stuff, you can. And I will now show you a picture which is believed to be the absolutely true picture of the Buddha created by gods, by deities. But again, I saw another picture, and that picture looks very different. And it is also, and the other picture that I saw was seen by a Czech meditation teacher, or so I think. And that meditation teacher, or at least Czech Buddhist, who can paint and draw, and he went to India and he saw that man, that Buddha, and then based on his memory, he painted that picture. That picture, of course, is not available to me, but it's different from the one that you will see now. Let's check it out. Different people have different emotions when they see this picture, which I find also interesting. I'll send you the link. Wait, how about I send you the link where you can find the picture so you can enjoy it yourself. Here you go. So here we have the picture of the Buddha, which is believed to be the absolutely true appearance of the Buddha. We still do not see there a lot of details, but a lot of the things seem to somehow, follow the 32 marks of the great man. Okay, I hope now you're very clear about this bulge on the head. The bulge on the head is actually not the unique feature of the Buddha. The other family members of the Buddha also had this bulge on the head of the Buddha. And here I'll tell you an interesting thing. The physical appearance that shows you that this is the Buddha or the wheel-turning monarch, Chakravati, Sajamin, uh, the 32 characteristics must be complete, and that's the trick. It's not about whether you have bulge on the head or whether you have a flat foot, but it's about whether you have all of the 32 marks of the body at the same time on your body. Okay, that is the hard thing. If you have 31, sorry, you do not qualify to become a Buddha or to become a wheel-turning monarch. Chakravarti Sijame. So it's the 32 parts of the body all together on that one single physical body of the Buddha. That is the miracle. Okay, so I personally saw a person who has flat feet and who is healthy. Be careful, he's healthy. I saw that person, I met that person personally in Sri Lanka. He's completely flat feet and he's healthy, whatever, happy, young Buddhist man. I saw him personally. I saw his flat feet personally by these eyes. Oh, yeah. And he is healthy. He has no problem. Not at all. But if you search flat feet in Wikipedia, you'll also find out that flat feet usually is a disease, is a trouble, but there are people who have flat feet and they're healthy. The Buddha had flat feet and he was healthy, or so the scriptures say. So a lot of things, a lot of these features of the body seem to be a little bit strange, but there are people who have those characteristics. But only the Buddha or the wheel-turning monarch Chakravarti Sejame has all of the 32 at once. So I hope I have answered your question and gave you something interesting to see and to watch. Anything else? This is our last class, so I will feel free a little bit to exceed the time to answer all your questions. Can we get the slides? Of course, you always get all of the slides in our WhatsApp group. If you are not in our WhatsApp group, please contact. You can contact me. This is my WhatsApp number, and I'll add you to the group. There we have all of the slides for all of the lectures. Okay, so let's continue. Do we have another? No, I already answered that. We have another 3 courses, but not next week. Thank you for your explanations. I have read about Moggallana and Sariputta. I read they had the aspiration to be with the Buddha in the very past lives. Finally, after millions of years, a lot of eons, they become the most important disciples. How they were able to maintain their good actions and accumulate enough paramitas to be reborn in the Buddha's time and to obtain to be the full enlightenment. Oh yeah, that is a very good question, and I will answer that question. So they actually met with a Buddha in a previous life, not when they were Sariputta Moggallana. In a previous life, they met with a Buddha and they came up to the Buddha and they said, Venerable Sir, I want to become a chief disciple like you have that chief disciple. They saw a chief disciple of the Buddha and they're like, oh, I want to be like that too. And they came up to the Buddha and they asked the Buddha if that is okay. And the Buddha said, yes, you will become a chief disciple for that particular Buddha. For example, for Buddha Gautama, your name will be like this and you will be special in that. And it is this very special prediction from the Buddha himself that, in short, that this person will not become enlightened too early, and this person will actually travel through many, many eons. You say how many eons? You say millions of years, lots of eons. Yes, that's correct. Many, many eons until they really became the chief disciple of the Buddha. So it's the promise or it's the prediction of the Buddha, or in some cases, the silent Buddha, the Pacceka Buddha, who make this possible. Okay, who make it possible, who basically lock the direction. They lock the direction. So this person then will go only that one direction towards being a chief disciple. And they will not change to a different direction, like to become a non-Buddhist or to become an Arahant very early or anything else. Then, so I hope that answered the question. Is next course also about Jātakas? Yes, we will be talking about so many more Jātakas in the next 3 courses. You see, we just finished 1 course. Can we avoid hell before the moment of death? How? Yes, by thinking the right things. You need to remember the good things you did in your life. If you meditate every day, if you give something to people every day, if you follow 5 precepts very carefully all times, and 8 precepts 1 day per week or more, or less, or if you go to meditation retreats,
or if you develop ways how you can help people. These are good actions, good karma. And when you're going to die, you need to make sure that you think about those good actions. Additionally, it's very helpful to recite the Buddha's teachings, in Pali ideally, or you have monks there with you when you're going to die who will be teaching you Dhamma or who will be reciting the Buddha's teachings. So that way you can ensure that by the last moments before death, you have the right thoughts. And when you have the right thoughts, you will be born in the right destination. So you could then say, and how about my karma? If I am a bad person and then I have the right thoughts, then what will happen to me? Well, if you kill, steal, commit adultery, tell lies, drink alcohol throughout your life, and before you die, you somehow manage to have the right thoughts, you will be born in heaven. You actually will, but for a short time, because after that short time in heaven, you will die and be born in hell anyway. So that didn't help. So the right thoughts is a necessary feature or necessary requirement, okay? Necessary additional requirement to be born in the right world. So you need to have the good actions and also the right thought. How about if you are a really excellent person, you donate, you follow rules, you meditate, but before you die, you think, oh, that one day I told a lie to my friend. That was so bad. You go to hell. But again, you go to hell, let's say, for 7 days. And then after those 7 days, I would not like to go to hell for 7 days, though. After those 7 days, you are then born in heaven for extremely long time. You see? So the thoughts before you die, they're extremely important, but they are part of the whole thing. They're just additional requirement that is extremely necessary. Okay, and if you fail, the world will somehow get you right, although maybe a little later. Okay, so if you fail to have the right thoughts, you may fall into hell, but the world will make sure that you are there only for a short time because you did so many good things. So after that short time in hell, you will go to heaven. But again, do not try to go to hell for 7 days. No, that's not a good idea. So we avoid all bad actions, ever, all times. Okay, so we never make exception. We never say, oh, I've been doing only the good things throughout my life for the last 120 years. I never told a lie, never broke 5 precepts. I was always meditating. So now if I tell one lie, it's not a problem. And it is. And it is a huge problem. So we never ever break those rules. Okay. I'm looking forward to joining the class. Thank you. I will be sending the registration form for the next course in the WhatsApp group. So make sure you're still there. Some people destroy our groups as soon as they feel like we finished. No, don't do that. We will keep the group. I think it will be good to read and explain some interesting as well as beneficial papers. They're not vulnerable monks. Uh-oh, be careful. They're venerable monks. Okay, vulnerable is something else. Venerable, venerable, not vulnerable. No, no. Venerable, venerable. Okay, from venerable monks, such as what does mindfulness really mean? A canonical perspective by Bhikkhu Bodhi. I would like to learn explanations with evidence and teachings from you on such topics as well. Yes, we may conduct some more courses in the future. We'll see. For now, I would like to deal with the Jātakas because I think they're really filled with interesting, inspirational ideas, stories, and they make things so much clearer. I have learned so many interesting things thanks to this course. Yeah, it's not just you who have learned things. I have learned things too. Awesome. So thank you everybody for joining me here in our Jātaka course. We therefore officially conclude our last lesson of our very first part. The second part will be about other Jātakas. We will not be repeating these Jātakas. We will not be repeating the knowledge from these Jātakas. I may sometimes mention something that we went through, but not necessarily. You are most welcome and most encouraged to invite your friends to join us in our next part of the course. The next part of the course is independent from this part. So if anyone who never ever saw or heard of this course, let alone attended it, they're still most welcome to attend the second part of the course. They are entirely standalone courses. They're not dependent one on another. Thank you, everybody, for your attention, and I hope to see you in our next course. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be successful in everything you do.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.